Okay, this is the call to order for the June 24th, 2025 meeting of the Finance and Government Operations Committee. Gavel. Clerk, will you please call the roll to establish the presence of a quorum?
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
I am here.
Chairperson Young.
Here.
We have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The first item on the agenda is public comment. This item is reserved for persons who wish to address the committee on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee that is not on this agenda. Members of the public who wish to address the committee on a non-agendized item should request to speak at this time by submitting a request to speak form if you're in the chambers or by using the raise hand icon if you're attending virtually. So I turn to my clerk. Are there any public commenters or members of the public who are requesting to speak?
We have one request to speak in the room. Brian Bertaccini, please step up to the podium.
Okay, you will have 3 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, before you start, Brian, and nobody in the virtual queue?
There are no requests to speak on Zoom.
Great, so Brian, as soon as you start speaking, we close the queue.
Great. Thank you, Supervisor Dong, or Chairman Dong, excuse me, and Supervisor Ellenberg. As I learned being here during the budget hearings and whatnot, the county is desperately looking for money for the next fiscal year and beyond. I'm here today to bring a solution, at least to some of that. We have a very critical vendor in our county, Dominion Voting Systems, which they have failed to comply and perform their obligations in this contract that's worth tens of millions of dollars. Now, I've come to this board before with these similar complaints. In 2022, I observed that our elections were performed with the voting systems being compromised by a security breach. And the proper legal remedy would have been for our Secretary of State to decertify these elections. And I know this to be true because this is what came from our county council and from the Santa Clara County Superior Court in legal pleadings last September. There's a problem in this county that we have a lack of oversight. We have a rogue vendor that was not being supervised, we shall say, to comply with the terms of their contract. We have personnel with that vendor that were on our voting systems without completing any of the paperwork that's required for them to access those systems. And had we had a case commission that was doing their work, they would have identified this. More of a problem is in the October 2023 board meeting here. County Executive Williams entered a report into the record from the registrar of voters that basically said all of the things that we had reported were misconceptions. And now we know that to be not true. And I had emailed Executive Williams to ask him if anybody had authenticated the content in that report. And basically what they did was cut and paste what's on the county's website, which is not accurate. It's a problem. So I'm here today to ask that there can maybe be another off-agenda item where somebody can seriously look into this vendor and what they've done to harm the people of this county, what they've done to erode trust in our voting systems, and if we take this serious, and if we take back every nickel that we're legally entitled to in that contract, because what they did to the people of this county was wrong, and technically it's a civil rights violation. Thank you.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you. Next up is item 3, which is the approval of the consent calendar and with any changes to the agenda. Vice Chair, do you have any changes for the agenda or consent calendar?
I would, if you're in agreement, I would move items 10, 11, and 15 to consent.
10, 11. Yes, I'm in agreement. I would also like to add item 13 and 14 to consent as well.
Okay.
Okay.
That's fine. I'm happy to make a motion that 10, 11, and 13, 14, and 15 are added to the consent calendar.
And then to pull item 20 off of consent onto the regular discussion.
It's fine as well.
Okay.
So moved for all of that.
And we do have a couple of requests to speak. And,
Great, let me provide one more direction, which is no changes to the motion on the floor right now. But for item 22, I want to leave that on consent, but I would love an off-agenda report sharing in greater detail the impacts or potential impacts that we foresee from reduced funding from our federal sources.
And if I could just clarify, sometimes I need this for myself, for folks that are speaking on consent, the way we have changed it, if you were planning to speak on items 10, 11, 13, 14, or 15 during the regular meeting, now is the time to make those comments. And if you were planning to speak on item 20, the fairgrounds, that should now wait until we get to item 20, since that will not be approved on consent.
Right.
All right, thank you.
we have two requests to speak, one for item 17 and one for item 22. Connie Chu and Brian Bertuccini.
Okay, we're going to do, because it's fewer than 5 speakers, we're going to do 3 minutes each.
Hi, good afternoon. It's good to be here. And I know this item 17 was on consent, but I was excited about it. It's our inaugural report, and I know ESA is also here. But we wanted to make sure that, everything that we did will be looked at and make sure you see all the statistics. I was on the subcommittee for the Defined Contribution Plans Committee, and I'm on the committee, and our committee looked at it as a whole and as a committee. And we also I want to acknowledge that Fidelity, who's our record keeper, and Innovest, who's our investment consultant, they helped us a lot to put this report together to make it look good and to include all the information that we wanted on it. So thank you for putting on consent. The one thing I individually wanted to say, I'm the vice chair of the committee, but as individually, I want to say the auto enrollment is something that I really have pushed for the last couple of years, and I'm really happy to see that the county approved that and put it on to the contracts with our different labor unions and associations. And the only one thing I just noticed is that it had an opt-out period of 35 days for people to opt out if they're hires or rehires. I believe that's 90 days, but that's something that can be checked on per the ESA folks and labor relations, all those folks. So, but thank you so much. And since I have a little more time, I've also been advocating individually to get the state level legislators to have auto enrollment allowed for government entities so that they can help people save more. As you know, the Public Employees Pension Reform Act that came into effect in 2013 really lowered our pensions, and we want to make sure that people are adding more to their defined contributions so they can make up for it and, retire with dignity. I mean, that really helped me to have the old calculation. Was it 55, 2.5 at 55, and now it's like 2% at 62, which is really a big difference when you look at the calculations. So that's another thing I'm hoping that you can advocate for in the future, and also the board to advocate for. And thank you so much for your time, and have a great day.
And Brian, please step up to the podium.
Thank you. Back again here. My wife always tells me that for every piece of criticism I offer, I should offer at least 3 items of praise. So I want to take a minute and just recognize our county executive for the job that he did during the budget process. And James, I really want to thank you for when you would explain technical items to people that don't know how government works and how the process works. It was very enlightening, and I thought it was really awesome that you were able to do that in a crowded chamber with so many people that are kind of new to the political process. So thank you very much, and I did learn a lot out of all of that, as well as I did from the supervisors, as well as learning where their priorities are. It was really awesome. I've kind of found myself in a unique position, maybe not so unique, but I've been retired for a few years, and I've got a lot of spare time. It's been fun coming down here and learning how the voting systems work and that type of stuff. But I noticed that there seems to be a lack of oversight with important things in the county. Maybe I'm misunderstanding that, but I myself, I have time to volunteer, and I would love to be able to put to work some of this stuff I learned in industry to benefit this county. Just like when you folks are looking for additional revenue sources, I'm thinking, hey, I've got the universities I've sent my daughters to hitting me up for their endowments, and thinking, hey, can't the county come up with something like that? So when we fall into hard times like this, we've got the money we need to provide the services to those most in need. So I just want to thank everybody on your side for the opportunity to be here to observe and learn and really recognize how hard the work is that you do. Now, having said that, I do believe that there could be more done in the way of oversight that would financially benefit this county. James, you have a huge portfolio. I mean, what is it, $13 billion or something close to that? And think of the thousands of contracts, maybe some more complicated than others. But if there's ways maybe you can put volunteer citizens to work that can help with that job of oversight and helping the county get to a place where we don't have to go through the pain that you guys have gone through the last couple of months. And again, thank you for your work.
And that concludes our request to speak.
Thank you, Colin. We are now heading to item 4, which is a, what? Go ahead.
Could we take the vote?
Oh, that's right. We have to vote still. Thank you, Colin. Go ahead.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg
Yes.
and Chairperson Young.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move on to item 4. Great. Item 4, this is a treat for everybody in the chambers today. So item 4 is receive report relating to fiscal year 2025-2026 annual work plans for the following commissions supported by the Office of the Clerk of the Board, and to forward to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So today we have presenters on behalf of the Board of Plumbing Examiners, the Citizens Advisory Commission on Elections, and the Veterans Commission. So first up is Craig Dunkerley from the Citizens Advisory Commissions on Elections.
Hello, how are you doing? Our work plan for the upcoming fiscal year, ending next year, we did submit to you in writing a number of months ago. Basically, it doesn't change too much from year to year. Our function is mostly to advise and consult with the registrar of voters and kind of monitor various election items that come up over the course of time. But I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Vice Chair, do you have any questions?
Thanks, Craig. I have no questions.
Thank you, Craig. I don't have any questions either. Are there any members of the public who would like to provide public comment?
We do have one request to speak. Brian Bertuccini. And there are no requests to speak online.
Thank you.
Okay, so last time today, and this was the biggest reason that I'm here today, and thank you, Supervisor Young, I really appreciate it. This work plan that was submitted, I had a chance to look at it. It's the same work plan that they've had for the last 5 years. My question is, when are they going to start working the plan? When are they going to start working the plan? We know the 2022 elections, the voting systems were compromised by a security breach. Craig's aware of that because we brought that to his attention. And we asked him if anybody had performed a vendor risk assessment on the voting system vendor. It took him over a year to get back to us to tell us that that risk assessment never took place. So it's really disappointing. Their work plan calls for a review of the ROV's policies and procedures. Had they did that work plan in 2022, they would have found that in the training materials for the election workers, the passwords to the voting systems, the usernames and passwords were published in that document. And we know that all the election workers were sharing the same usernames and passwords, and that we had voting systems that were deployed with wireless communications enabled. Those are serious, serious issues. And those are really simple issues to identify and fix. So my question for the Case Commission, where were they? What were they doing? They're busy writing recommendations for ranked choice voting. They want to introduce a new risky technology and have a vendor introduce that that's got issues complying and performing with their agreements. I hate to keep coming here and bitching about this stuff, but it's a problem. And I hope somebody will look at this vendor and the work that they've done and hold them accountable, because it certainly isn't going to be our Citizens Advisory Commission on elections. And the other thing is this commission is not serving its citizens. It's serving special interest. And we saw that in the April 15th meeting where Commissioner Chesson came here and told us that he was speaking on himself, but he was speaking on behalf of Fair Vote and all these other organizations that are taking money to promote ranked choice voting. I just ask that someone will take a serious look at this vendor and hold them accountable. Thank you.
That concludes our request to speak.
Great. At this time, I'd like to invite Cole Cameron on behalf of the Veterans Commission up for a presentation. Welcome, Cole.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking time to take a look at our various actions that we're going to be doing. I'd like to introduce my future chair, my co-chair currently, Malia McLaughlin. She's very active down in the South County in the Morgan Hill, Gilroy area, has been for years with their Chamber of Commerce and doing quite well. And I also like to take a minute that I mentioned to Colin earlier before we started, appreciating the whole clerk team. The people on the street, on the ground, doing all the detail, I really appreciate. And that includes our own, she's here still, good. Ratika is sitting in the back, who puts up with me regularly, but it'll be easier to go with Malia and Rob, our future co-chair. So I was told I had 10 minutes. Is it, or 3? I can do it in 3. You'd prefer that, of course.
You're not a public commenter, so you're not strictly limited, but I would ask for a presentation of up to 5 minutes.
That's the wrong thing to say to me. So I'll breeze through the highlights because you've received all the documents already.
Thank you, Cole.
We have a new acquisition, thanks to you and others, in acquiring Tin Kirk. I have put vets in that place for years, including the work I did with veterans in San Quentin that are now paroled out and doing quite well. So I'm glad to see the repairs being done. My future vice chair, Rob's going to be helping with Caruso and the others in the visioning process for the next level of work at that site. Learning experience is the way I'll rephrase it with the Vermont site that was just announced going to mental health. We had 8 or 10 people taken out of Tin Kirk because of the way the place was in shambles. Well, they were put in a hotel. Vermont was originally under Abode, the way I understand it, the manager of Tin Kirk, as a veteran location. And so we could have used those same people out of a hotel expense in an existing site. So I hope we can learn from that. Jim Beal came to me about additional land behind the San Jose VA Center, and we're going to have to get to the owners of that land. It wasn't owned by us, to see if there's some possible additional housing there. One of my biggest concerns that we've been talking about in our commission for a good while is the VSO team getting a larger appropriate office. Veterans can't have a confidential meeting with their counselors in open cubicles. There's been good communication and teamwork between all the parties. We just don't have a movement to that site. So I'm not sure if there's additional support being needed or not, but that's my ask. This was originally approved, by the way, back in October of '23. Transportation. VTA's got $1 a ride for veterans. There's a couple of these in the back, and I'll be sending this out by email so you have that. We've been talking with two, and then yesterday we had a third possible new commissioner as I'm stepping out to fill in with our commission to take it to the next level. And I look forward to some support in how to weave through the system. Les Clark, who's done an amazing job in overseeing that area, is on vacation this week, so I wasn't able to close anything with him to bring forward. We had our public defender team cut to, I think, one, maybe two, and they really do a great job for not only our vets, but all the lesser served, and working with Judge Manley. So the work I've done with that team at the stand downs and other locations is something that we really need to look at to see if there's any way to at least get another one or two more public defenders involved. Our biggest frustration is how do we get, so we have 300 or 400 people that really know what all the facilities, benefits, services are available. And we've got 30,000 vets that don't know that. How do we get the information from us that know to those that don't? And that's been an ongoing battle. Yes, we have formal organizations here and there, but when you think about how many vets are a part of those, it's a small comparison to all those that are still out there. Another frustration is the caregiver process. That's something we're working with the VA to try to simplify. The founder of NoaVet that I'm on the board of has that founder, Neil, who has Agent Orange and cancers from that, being in country in Vietnam, now out at the Livermore Clinic because his two kids, both RNs, can't take care of it. The thing I want people to understand about Agent Orange is it's not just the person that has it. He came home from duty. They had a daughter. She has symptoms. She had a daughter. She has symptoms. It's multi-generational. And this didn't just impact our vets. Being in attendance to the Vietnam veteran meeting session last night, you know, there's many there and still in country that were impacted. And for decades, we ignored that it even existed. Really sad. We had a suicide education program in the past, which was really educating the public. So when they interfaced with a veteran, they could say, I can point you to some people that'll help you out, say the VSO office, and we have now a rejuvenated partnership with the mental health team, so that's really good to hear. One of the things that I wanted to bring forward is, if you're interacting with someone you think is a vet, use the phrase, did you serve? As opposed to, are you a vet? Why? So I'm a vet. I served, but I was in and around the Pentagon, not in the patties. I was not on the front line. So did you serve is a more inclusive to add the other 75% of the veterans that weren't in the actual front line. I look forward to this transition and developing a legacy for the commission with Malia and Rob. And I'm quite open to any comments or questions you might have to support our veterans that happen to give us all these freedoms that allow us to do anything we want. Thank you again.
Cole, thank you for your service, and thank you for serving as chair of the Veterans Commission. When are you officially stepping from this role?
It'll probably be the fall. We have an election committee we have to set up this Thursday with our next commission meeting that's open. It's in the basement over here at 11:30. Anyone can come. And then that will form candidates that we then will elect in 2 months. And that will hopefully be Malia and Rob. So, and I'm not going here. We created a group circle called the Emeritus Circle. So like Mike, who just retired, and myself, will still be in the room, will still be supporting with our knowledge and understanding, so we continue the legacy as the new people take over.
Thank you, Cole. That was my next question. I want to make sure you didn't go too far. Yeah. Thank you. And I look forward to working with you in our offices to continue the work of the commission.
Yeah, it's really great to have such a wonderful team amongst you and the rest of the board that aren't here today.
Thank you. Vice Chair, did you have any questions or comments?
I don't. Thank you very much, Cole, for your national service and for your service to our county and this
You
commission.
bet. You bet.
Thank you. Colin, do we have any public comments on this item?
There are no more requests to speak.
Fantastic. And then last but certainly not least is our Board of Plumbing Examiners. Hello, Chair.
Good afternoon. My name is Philip Ribbs. I'm the chair of the Plumbing Board Examiners. We've submitted a annual work plan, which kind of describes what we do. And to sum it up, we meet monthly, and we test want-to-be plumbers after they have completed 5 years worth of apprenticeship program or experience. Currently, for this last year, we were able to pass between 50 and 60%. And then, but we test every odd month, and then we grade every even month. So we're doing pretty good, all in all. I'm pleased with it. That's an average that we have maintained for the for as long as I can remember. It's not an easy test. It's proprietized. It actually comes from the National Institute of Testing Corporation. That test is 2.5 hours. It's written, of course. And then we have a drawing test to demonstrate practical skills. We've generated that. That test takes about a half an hour. And between the two of them, if the applicant passes both, then they are issued a county journeyman's competency card. If they do not pass, then they have to wait to the next odd month, so it would be January, March, et cetera, et cetera. And by the way, I want to thank all of you. You finally filled a vacancy that we've had for some time, and so now we have all 5 commissioners again, and I'm real pleased about that, because we can't conduct meetings unless we have a quorum, just the same as you. So do you have any questions?
Chair Ribbs, I have no questions. I just want to extend my appreciation to you for your service and to the commissioners. Turning to my vice chair.
I would echo that gratitude. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Chair. Are there any public commenters on this item?
There are no requests to speak.
Great, so I will make a motion to receive the report.
Second?
All right, Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to agenda item 6, which is to receive the quarterly verbal report from the Social Services Agency, Office of Children and Families Policy relating to a collection and reporting of programmatic and service data for the Santa Clara County Children's Budget. And I have here that Sarah Duffy will be presenting. Hi, Sarah. What's that?
Item 5.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Item 5. What? Oh, I see. Thank you for that. Item 5 is receive report from the Office of Children and Families Policy and Kids in Common relating to the 2025 Santa Clara County Children's Data Book. And that also has Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Young and Vice Chair Ellenberg. I am very pleased to be here today and to introduce the two current co-directors of Kids in Common, Dana Bunnett, a longtime, very respected leader, thought partner, children and youth advocate, and Joy Murrieta. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Okay. A new leader and also a youth advocate who brings very fresh perspectives for strategic partnerships. It's also with a heavy heart, but a lot of well wishes that I wanted to share that Dana's last day with Kids in Common will be the 30th of June. And Dana has been a tremendous voice in the well-being of children and families and a personal mentor of my own. So it's with a sad heart that I share that news, but also a lot of excitement to continue the work with Joy. So there is a natural nexus between the children's data book and the children's budget book, in that both highlight local priorities to ensure all children are safe, healthy, learning, and thriving. And while the budget book focuses on priorities from a funding perspective, and we'll go over that in the verbal update, the data book focuses on tracking local trends, data to lift emerging gaps. And both reports highlight key and innovative services important to racial and social equity. In the past few years, the Office of Children and Families Policy in the county and Kids in Common have begun a very intentional partnership to align the functions of these two resource documents to help the Board of Supervisors and other local leaders calibrate priorities and funding decisions to meet emerging service needs. So I will now turn it over to Dana and Joy. Thank you both for your leadership and for taking us through the highlights of the children's data book.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I can go to next slide. So Kids in Common has been producing the data book since the late 90s, and we started producing it annually when we began the Children's Agenda initiative, which works to create a county where every child is safe, healthy, successful in learning, and thriving in life. The data book provides community-level data and dashboards and includes county metrics. It serves to drive conversations on needed investments in policies and practices. We partner with local government, school districts, and nonprofit sectors. And the data sources that it includes, we use data from the county, from the Office of Education, community partners, American Community Survey, and U.S. Census, as well as the California Department of Education, Public Health, and Health and Human Services. Next slide, please. So looking at the population of Santa Clara County, about 21% of the population are children ages 0 to 17. Another 2% are young adults ages 18 to 25. And as you may know, we have a very diverse population with 39% of our children being Asian and 28% being Latinx. And almost 29% of our children receive public assistance, such as Medi-Cal or CalFresh, over the last fiscal year.
Thank you. I've never had to sit in this seat before, I don't think. The markers of success that we use to guide the data book are both based on the Bill of Rights for youth and children and young adults, as well as the life course framework, which we can see in this chart. Things like, one begets the other. Healthy pregnancy and birth is more likely to lead to children who are successful in their life, including, being ready for school, success, proficient in 3rd grade reading and 8th grade math, graduating from high school, ready for college and career. And then the last big indicator is having positive economic ability with earning at least 300% of the federal poverty rate. Next slide. Moving into some of the data points, so these are some that we are concerned with, as we know you are concerned, is housing instability. We use McKinney-Vento, which is a school measure of housing instability, which also includes not only being unhoused and unsheltered, but also maybe couch surfing, doubling up with families, and being in hotel settings. And between 2021 and 23-24, we have seen about a doubling of the number of kids who are considered eligible for McKinney-Vento. This is partly because, one little reason in this is because the schools have gotten more rigorous about how they collect this data, but also we had the end of the eviction protections in 21, and it's just gone up since then. Next slide. Food security and insecurity continues to be an issue for children in our county. We do a calculation for food security that relates to about 300% of our kids. If you're at 300% of the federal poverty level, we consider you at risk for food insecurity. And this gets more intense because between 185% and 300% of federal poverty level, you don't get any kind of federal support such as CalFresh. There's, food security relates to chronic absenteeism, to tardiness, to behavioral issues in schools, hyperactivity. And so it's really an important issue to address. In particular, too, 56% of our Black families, 57% of our Latinx families, and 11% of white and 13% of Asian families are facing food insecurity. So it's an issue where we see differences by race and ethnicity, and it's something to be concerned about. And social emotional well-being is another one. I know the county's made a lot of investment in our schools with schooling services and some other behavioral health investments. We've been without the California Healthy Kids Survey for several years, and now we finally do have that data available to us. It was done in 22 and 23, and we found that 34% of our kids reported feeling sad or hopeless for more than 2 weeks in the past year, which is an indicator of depression. 15% seriously considered suicide in the past year. Some good news is that 63% of our students had 3+ feelings of life satisfaction. Of course, we want that to be higher, but there is that other side to that. We actually don't see huge differences by race and ethnicity, but we do see big differences for the LGBTQ+ community, in that 58% of LGBTQ+ students report feelings of sadness, and 35% have reported that they had seriously considered suicide in the previous year. And among the transgender students, 55% report they had seriously considered suicide. So it's in the idea of targeted universalism, where you have a goal for all of our kids to be doing well, we may need to be thinking about different strategies that really target the needs of these students. And then next slide, please. I know that over the past few years, the county's been very concerned about chronic absenteeism in school, which is 10% students missing 10% or more of their days at school. Pre-COVID, it was 9%, and it went up to 19% in this 22 through 23 school year. Ticked down a couple points this last school year, or not just the most immediate last school year, but 23 through 24. And it is something that we really need to think about. 31% of Pacific Islander, 27% of Latinx, and 22% of Black students were chronically absent. 26% of low-income students and 29% of students with disabilities are chronically absent. Our social emotional wellness initiative is beginning to focus on how do we help kids feel more connected at school, and we're initiating an effort called Greetings at Every Door, which has been shown when the teacher greets the students that are entering the classroom with a handshake, a smile, saying their name, that they actually does improve school connectedness, makes the classroom run smoother. And so our group of leaders that are focusing on this effort are going to be working this fall to push out this approach, which is trying to build more school connectedness, which means, if there's an adult at school waiting for you and wondering where you are, if you're absent, you're going to be more likely to show up for them. And so that's one way we're starting to think about addressing chronic school absenteeism. Next slide.
The last bit of information we have for you today is, in addition to the data book, we also have an online data dashboard that breaks the data down even further. So on the dashboard, you can look up many key indicators by zip code or other geographic area or by school. It also looks at the social emotional support, such as school wellness centers, schooling services, community schools, or Project Cornerstone. So it's possible to look up the impact that these social emotional inputs are having on youth. Next slide.
Thank you.
Just thank you.
Thank you, Dana, and thank you, team, for the presentation. Susan, I'll look to you if you have any comments or questions.
I have some, but I'm fine waiting for a public comment first.
Sure. Do you have any public comments on this item?
There are no requests to speak in the room, and there are no requests to speak online.
Thank you.
Then I am happy to speak. First of all, Dana, gorgeous. This
Thank you.
is one of my two favorite annual publications, this one being the other. Not a surprise to anyone, but I first just want to thank you. I think it's 7 years. How many years has the data book been published?
Like 2008 or 9,
Oh.
and so longer.
Considerably
yeah.
more. It is really a tremendous resource. My team has relied on it for years. I first learned about it when I was a trustee for San Jose Unified School District, and this book, I think, has been informing and shaping policy and funding direction for years. So just a heartfelt thank you for your steady and impressive and inspiring leadership. I also love how thoughtful you've been about the transition of Kids in Common with the co-leadership model. I think was just true to who you are, of really putting the mission and the work of this organization above any individual. So much gratitude there. I want to ask just a couple of questions about the data around toddler infant childcare, the shortage and the demand and the supply numbers. Can you talk a little bit more about the sources for that data, how it was analyzed? And of course, it's no secret to anyone that what I'm trying to assess is how we can be very clear on what the unmet need is, particularly for infants and toddlers, what fully funding that gap, what not necessarily only by the county, but what would that look like, and the breakdown between facilities and workforce and subsidized slots. It's a complicated puzzle, and you've got lots of the pieces here. And could you talk just a little bit about how that comes together?
You know, we rely on on Santa Clara County Office of Education and their child care referral, resource and referral line for most of this information. So the information around the type of child care settings we have, and some of the data in here related to the costs and subsidizing and some of the rules that have changed are there. But it is, it's an area where I feel like we need to do a better job in terms of collecting the data. We've used the Child Care Local Planning Council uses some formulas from the state to identify here's how many subsidized slots you should have and how many we actually have. And transitional kindergarten's kind of thrown a little, it's kind of hard to know exactly with TK. I think once we get to that where we should have 100% enrollment in TK, we'll kind of have a little bit numbers.
That's why I really think about the zeros.
Yeah, but it is a bit of a, I feel like we're providing you with the information and in the same way, but I think there would be some benefit if there's some other ways we could count this down the line. So,
thanks, and I imagine I'll come back to that in the next item.
Yeah.
The other question that I wanted to ask is just kind of a global reflection for you, Dana. Over the course of publishing this book, where do you see that the county, and I don't just mean the county organization because it's the Office of Ed, it's the cities, but in terms of serving children, where do you think the greatest advances have been made, and where do you think we have either stagnated or gone in the wrong direction over the years?
Well, I think, some of the investments in schooling services has probably been really significant, and this county making that investment and thinking about, realizing that the schools can't do it all, and how can we support those needs, which we maybe are dealing with in other spheres, but how do we make sure we use the schools to get to that? I think that's been probably one of the most important investments that
And how do you, what is the outcome or the metric that you're looking at to say that that investment has been impactful? I'm not challenging, I'm trying to just understand.
I think the data book and the indicators that drive the children's agenda are these kind of global indicators, and each one has many contributions, and things may contribute to several different indicators.
Right.
And so where I would expect to see differences are in, well, the ultimate indicator would be how more kids are thriving in life, more kids graduate from college and career. And I think if you had to choose one indicator, that would be the one I'd want to track because it has so many different inputs that influence its potential. I think we haven't had the California Healthy Kids Survey for several years, and COVID certainly impact our kids. There's some things also that are external to the work we're doing that impact us in a way that we can't always tell. Chronic absentee, actually schooling services, one of the things I'd really expect would be chronic absenteeism to improve. And then some of the other, I think the developmental assets and the developmental relationships and Project Cornerstone as schools become better connected and kids feel like they belong and they're helped to be at school, I think that would also be impacted. Those assets should be impacted by schooling services too.
And where do you think we've struggled the most or been the least impactful?
Housing, I think that's just, it's such a big issue, but I don't see how kids can be doing well if they're struggling, if their families are stressed out by housing. Food insecurity is the other one that really concerns me because and they're so linked together. But kids aren't eating. And we're in one of the wealthiest places in the world, and if we have kids that are struggling with food, it's very concerning too.
Yeah, and that's one of the more surprising pieces to me because that is an area where the schools really have stepped in with multiple meals a day. Are you talking more about food access when school is not in session, or even with the school meals? There's a problem?
Those are good things. We had a food. One of our work groups, the Children's Agenda, focused on food security, and one of the things, working with Second Harvest, we were able to talk to schools, and what we find is that at the schools, kids aren't really given enough time to eat. And so they'll, and that's even a simple thing like reversing when they play and when they eat would be a good thing to help with that because they want to eat and they want to get out and play. Or so there are some issues around what's happening with food in the schools. Is it culturally appropriate? Does it taste good? So there's those kinds of things. But CalFresh has been also really underutilized. And when you think about if families could really utilize CalFresh fully, that means more money in the economy, and it frees up money in their budget to spend money on other things like after-school programming or, nice, cleaner, just everything, provides just those positive opportunities for positive youth development. And so, it's just something I think, Second Harvest has the same high demand they had during COVID, and yet their donations are going down. So that's also, so it's like the food system is a multi-piece system, and there are many pieces of it that we need to be paying attention to make sure it works for everybody.
Thank you so much. I would agree with that and imagine that was what was the motivating factor for creating that, I don't remember Casey's title, food systems
Food
manager.
systems.
Right.
To
give
the county an organizational role there. Thank you again. I really appreciate and just constantly use this book. If I had a third book, actually, to hold up, it would be the joint venture Silicon Valley State of
that's
Valley
also very good.
Index. We are nothing if not full of data here. The test is how we use that data to actually improve the lives of human beings, and particularly the littles. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. This is a very fulsome report with it's rich in data, and it's very rich in the what, right? And as policymakers now, our task is to understand the why and the how out of this. I do have, it was puzzling to me too, Susan, about the food insecurity. To your point, we live in one of the richest places, one of the richest economies in the country. And the fact that there are still children who are food insecure or not having reliable meal times, it's shameful for all of us here. The food does suck at schools. That's what my kid tells me, verbatim. My 8-year-old. And I don't know, how do we even approach something like that? Like making food better, having better dietary outcomes or just nutritional value to these meals. And then the examples that you just provided just now, considering the sequencing of playtime and mealtime, I know that at my daughter's school, there's breakfast, hot breakfast, then there's a mid-morning snack, then there's a lunch, Then there's a supper time for the mid-afternoon snack. And then there's also to-go dinners before for the kids that are in aftercare. That's a lot of food throughout the day. But
Yeah.
I hear complaints regularly from her and her friends that the food is not good. And is this something that we would have to go like from school district to school district to address the food issue?
Yeah, I think that is, Second Harvest convenes the schools on a regular basis, and they work on the issues that they're facing a lot, and they really try to play a role of facilitating both conversation about what might be better, as well as facilitating things actually happening. It is kind of a district by district. It might even be within the districts, the school by school in some ways change too. And the other thing that we have to keep in mind is that a lot of these food programs are being threatened by the federal cuts too. So that's another issue we need to be aware of. But yeah, I think it's the committee that's working on this is thinking about some different approaches to it, including maybe they do go speak to the school districts and talk to them about what some possibilities around food might be. Maybe doing some opinion. Nobody reads the newspaper anymore, but leaders do. So maybe doing an opinion piece in the newspaper that says, here's some things to be thinking about with the food that our kids are eating at school. And so those are some of the things they're thinking about looking at. But it is, we Kids in Common is one person right now, and so Kids in Common can try to facilitate. It's two people right now, but it'll become one person again on July 1. And how do we activate people and support them in thinking about how do you share the information and how do you encourage change? Sometime, we started talking about suspensions in schools back in 2011, and within a year or two, our suspensions had cut in half. And it was by just talking about sometimes people are standing in the system, they don't quite know where what's going on around them. And if you lift up the issue, sometimes people begin to pay attention to it in a way that changes things, even without taking conscious action. It almost kind of washes over people, and they begin to see things differently and think about the issue differently.
Yeah, thank you, Dana. I see Casey and Emily in the audience there. I know it's not your presentation report, but in future report backs on the food system work plan, understanding how this can be layered with the data that we have regarding children and food insecurity. And I brought up the examples of all the meal times at just I'm a sample of one kid, right? If that is experienced, this is a Title I school, Alum Rock Union School District. If our kids are being provided or offered 5 meals a day at school, so the food insecurity that's being reported is happening at home and on the weekends.
Right, or if you're a multi-general family, the stress of just you have people to feed, that maybe are not getting the food at the schools. And again, if kids aren't eating the whole food at the schools, there have been really innovative programs where they send food on the weekends, or so I think it really does mean looking at it. Really kind of doing a school district by district kind of look at it and see where are the gaps and what's actually being eaten and what's being thrown away, and seeing where that is. So,
thank you, Dana. So not necessarily for discussion today, unless there's some thoughts that could be offered, reflections that could be offered from our data experts here. It's that recent legislation at the state level with Assemblymember Patrick Ahrens has removed the penalties attached to chronic absenteeism for parents. So state law is changing around that. What I watched that discussion. The impetus for that, or the rationale, is that for parents with children who do have chronic absenteeism, there are other challenges there, in that the state assembly doesn't feel that at this time punishing the parents or applying punitive damages or tough love, right, is going to be productive or fruitful in terms of getting their kids in school more. It's something that I'm trying to still understand. It makes logical sense to me, but for our continued conversations, either at FGOC or at CSFC, or through our continued work, is I think, without those penalties, what is it that we need to shore up on the county side, right? Sometimes these interventions are how we provide resources and services, and that that helping hand to parents who may be struggling with other challenges that prevent them from getting their kids to school. Just be able to I don't want to request an off agenda. I know we're going to meet each other on a monthly basis at CSFC, but if there's any initial thoughts on that now, or what the county can be doing, or what policymakers can be mindful of as we're looking at the continued data on chronic absenteeism and these new changes in state law.
Thank you, Supervisor. This is a great conversation, and I'm glad we have Dana and Joy here with their expertise. I think both the chronic absenteeism and the food security are focuses for the children's agenda. And the children's agenda, which Joy pointed out, is really good at bringing people together and having like good thinkers in their different spaces come together with ideas and experiences and solutions. So I think there have been, chronic absenteeism has been a focus, and reducing it and figuring out community-based solutions that are non-punitive for like as long as I can remember working in children and families systems. And there are some really good best practices around how to engage community partners and working with families to help them make sure that they get their kids to school. And it tends to be really strong relationships between a nonprofit provider and a school, oftentimes, where they can have community partners even go to homes and go so far as kind of build relationships and walk groups of kids to school together and bring them home and help with other family support. So there's a lot of great models that we can think through, and I think part of the question mark is how do we think about that kind of blended funding and who's doing what so that we're leveraging these supports, because there are really good models that are based kind of grassroots in communities. We often have to kind of leverage all of the pieces to make sure that schools want to participate, that we have the right community partners, that cities and county resources are being leveraged, because things like your SLS coordinator can help with some of this too on the school site. So I think it's a question of figuring out how do we leverage our existing partnerships and contracts to address chronic absenteeism very head on, in partnership with schools. And I actually think this is one of those indicators that we can see move. So I'm optimistic about that, as well as the food piece, because I do think that the free foods and the federal reimbursement is somewhat new, and there are a lot of food vendors out there, and sometimes it's a question of bringing experts in to work with schools to just share information and just make the information about what's available and the administrative piece of it more widely available. So I'm optimistic for that too, and I just want to elevate the children's agenda as being a really good kind of thinking space to bring these ideas together and kind of help move change along.
Well, and chronic absentee is both an indicator, but also the result of the other indicators not working well, not doing as well with those, so it's important that way. And page 53, we actually have some detailed ideas of the data book that talk about some strategies to address chronic absenteeism. I was wondering if I may say one more thing too before we're done. You've done your question. Doing this work for the past almost 25 years in this county, it's been amazing to work with a board of supervisors that care about kids so much and that make children a priority. And we have the child impact statements, we have the children's budget, and I first met Supervisor Ellenberg we were both running for school board. She won, I didn't, but Supervisor Ellenberg, before she became on the board of supervisors, was involved in the children's agenda work, and I just really, you've already, Supervisor Duong, have already demonstrated your commitment to children, and it's just been really an amazing place to work where kids are given high priority. And I just wanted to thank you all for your service and say, keep up the good fight, onward, and you're really going to enjoy working with Joy in the future. She brings some vision and some amazing ideas and different set of skills than I had, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing where Kids in Common is going to go under her leadership.
Well, Dana, thank you for your service. It's my first 6 months in office, and all the greats seem to be announcing their retirement. I won't take it personal. But your service and your contributions to this county and to the well-being of our children can really be seen across the whole spectrum. at every grade level. So it's been an honor working with you and to also receive your gifts and your dedication. So thank you, Dana and Joy. There's no greater glowing recommendation than the one Dana just provided. Look forward to working with you, and congratulations on your new role.
Thank you. Look forward to working with you as well, you all.
Thank you. We're gonna, let's see, public comment was already sought, and then we're gonna motion to receive the report.
Yes.
Second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. Okay. Now, item 6 for Real. Receive quarterly verbal report from the Social Services Agency, Office of Children and Families Policy relating to collection and reporting of programmatic and service data for the Santa Clara County Children's Budget.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Young. So this is a quarterly update. I believe our last update was in March 2024, and the Office of, and I'll just give a little bit of context to that update. The office shared that we partnered with OBA to gather detailed programmatic and service data for fiscal year 24-25 children's budget as a pilot project. And we worked specifically with the Division of Equity and Social Justice and the Social Services Agency on the pilot. In terms of the roles, OBA serves as the lead on the children's budget, providing all the budgetary support and reaching out to various county departments to submit information on programs and services supporting children and families, while the Office of Children and Families Policy serves as the lead for the pilot project and collects data and conducts analysis. A new children's budget data form was created this past year to collect information for a centralized internal resource, as well as a public-facing summary-level dashboard. So that's what's to come, with additional details on the county investments pertaining to kids and families. This resource is intended to help inform future policies in identifying funding gaps and overlapping contracts and services, which in turn we hope will lead to more effective partnerships across county departments and with external partners. So in terms of our current efforts and what is currently happening, we have expanded the data collection process countywide in preparation for the fiscal year 25-26 children's budget. In April, we held informational sessions with departments to support with the completion of our new programmatic forms. Departments also provided feedback on the process. Departments are currently finalizing their programmatic forms submission due to the Office of Children and Family Policy by June 30th, and then our staff will be analyzing the submissions to develop the narratives for the children's budget. As of 6/23, a total of 64 responses have been received, with about 33% of departments, 8 out of 24, having submitted the forms, but I understand there's also a lot of back and forth between the remaining departments to prepare their submission. And one form is submitted per program. So that's where we are right now, and we are looking forward at our next quarterly quarterly report to hopefully have some initial results and dashboard data to share, or at least some charts. I'm not sure if the dashboard will be live. So that is the process, and the team has been working very diligently with all of the county departments to collect the additional data.
Thank you, Sarah. Colin, are there any members of the public who wish to speak at this time?
There are no requests to speak online, and there are no requests to speak in the room.
Susan, turn to you, Vice Chair, for any comments or questions.
Thank you very much. Sarah, it's really exciting to see how the utilization of this budget report has really taken off since you have dipped into it. It was exciting in 2019. I asked for that initial budget really just to get my hands around how we're spending money on children and what were the sources, what was general fund, what do we get from the state and the federal government. And now we have a solid understanding of the what. I appreciate what you are still putting together. And I'm so interested to see how we use this data and the children's data book, and to the extent it's also relevant, the Silicon Valley Index, to really focus on the what and the how. I know that at some level it's hard to talk about metrics, but even within sort of the amorphous children succeeding in life, succeeding in school, I think that there are a number of things that we can measure. We can certainly measure increases in childcare slots. The County Office of Education measures kindergarten readiness, so we can evaluate that. The number of families that we prevent from becoming homeless or get into housing, we can measure that. I want to make sure that we are not only measuring the right things, but investing in the things that are actually the biggest challenges. So what I would look for from you, not necessarily in the next quarterly report, but as a goal from assembling data to using it, to coming to the board with recommendations that are some of our biggest challenges are in these areas, and these investments haven't moved the needle. These investments haven't helped to get more kids into housing, helped to get more kids stable access to food. Are we seeing healthier outcomes? And I think that we as a board will have to have the courage, if necessary and recommended, to shift what we're funding and the way we are funding to make sure that we're seeing measurable improvements. My own goal is sort of amorphous too, because I want this to be the best place in the state of California to raise children. That could mean all sorts of things to so many people. So I look to you and our three other colleagues to really coalesce around what it means for children to thrive here. And I think the data book and the slide, this Markers of Success, Cradle to Career on page 11, offer us some guideposts along the way. And while we are not directly responsible for educational success, proficient in reading and proficient in math, our efforts with school-linked services to help stabilize families and children, to ensure that children and youth have the resources they need to be successful in school, so that teachers can do the job of teaching and aren't also having to be nurses and psychologists and therapists and all of the other pieces. So we do have a role in that. I think we have a role in nearly every aspect of helping families stabilize and grow their economic security and prosperity, grow the opportunities for their children, grow up in safe, healthy communities. And in my view, really all of our work should be in service of that. And I know that county governments, we've talked about this numerous times, are set up to respond to deep-end trauma, deep-end harm, very expensive solutions. And I understand that it's harder to invest in problems that haven't happened, and it's hard to measure success when you're saying that the success is an absence of bad things. But I think to achieve our goals, we have to be moving always upstream, always toward prevention, always with an eye to minimizing, mostly for humane, but also for financial reasons, where we are spending money, kind of stopping the bleeding at the end. So I look forward to the next report. We will continue to use this book, and eager to move from reporting to strategies. Thank you again.
And thank you, Susan, for your leadership on this. Thank you. I have no questions other than just my deep appreciation for the incredible amount of work that went into this. And it's going to be, it continues to be a useful resource tool for our offices. And I hope that everybody is using this in some way as we're reevaluating and constantly reevaluating and evaluating our budget as it changes with the federal and state landscape. I will make a motion to receive the report.
Second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to hear item 7 now, which is receive report from the Office of Supportive Housing relating to the county single-family home loan portfolio.
Good afternoon, KJ Kaminsky, Acting Director for the Office of Supportive Housing. I'm joined by Natalie Monk, our Housing and Community Development Manager. Today, we had, the board approved a referral in January related to some single-family home loans. And so we're here prepared to provide a verbal report on our single-family loan programs. And Natalie is going to share an overview, and we'll be happy to take questions as well.
Thank you, KJ. The county has a single-family home loan portfolio with approximately 195 loans with a combined outstanding balance of approximately $20 million from 5 funding sources. In the 1980s, we began issuing loans to lower-income households as down payment assistance to help them purchase a home or to make repairs to their existing home. Because our single-family loan portfolio is over 40 years old and we've used several different funding sources, the loans have a wide variety of terms. We also have a mortgage credit certificate program where we've applied for state tax credits for single-family homeowners. However, the state has not made new MCCs available since 2019. We currently have 4 active homeownership programs. The first is our home repair program with Rebuilding Together. We have 3 down payment assistance programs, Empower Homebuyers, the Below Market Rate Partnership Program, and the Manufactured Home Purchase Program. Historically, the county funded homeownership programs using CDBG and home funds. Today, we apply for Cal Home and now Joe Cerna funding from the state. We're required to use a portion of our PLHA funding from the state for homeownership as well. We've also programmed $42 million in 2016 Measure A Affordable Housing Bond funds towards homeownership projects and programs. And Attachment A shows a summary of the county's single-family loan funds, including any reuse restrictions. That concludes my report. I'm happy to take questions.
Well, I pulled this item and, well, no, I didn't pull the item. This was the item that was on a previous board agenda, and I had asked for this report to come to FGOC. And one part is that I didn't even know that the county did this. And so that was a very pleasant surprise, adding just another dimension to the vast amount of work and the affordable home and supportive home system that you all have created here in Santa Clara County. So how does one access these programs?
Thank you for the question. So 2 of the 4 programs are managed by our partners. So if you're in need of home repair, then you can reach out to Rebuilding Together and apply to be part of their program. Empower Homebuyers is managed by the Housing Trust on our behalf. They also manage other homeownership programs as well with other sources. So many potential buyers reach out directly to them. For the Below Market Rate Partnership Program and the Manufactured Home Purchase Program, we manage those programs ourselves, and we have a dedicated staff person that people can reach out to.
So other than attending or watching today's FGOC meeting, is this information listed on the OSH website? How do we navigate that?
That's correct.
Yeah. So on the Office of Supportive Housing website, you can just go there, and then there's going to be immediately, readily visible a section for those who would like to buy their first home.
That's correct, and it lets you know how you can contact us.
Okay. And then has there been any feedback about the processes of these different programs? I know that the Empower Homebuyer program, I've sent a number of people to that program, and they sit through a lengthy orientation, and there's lots of paperwork to fill out, and it could be some feedback I received that can be lengthy and cumbersome, and then to find out that they don't qualify, or they qualified 1 year, but later on in the year they no longer qualify. So I'm talking about folks who do seasonal work, or maybe folks like, for example, folks in construction, right, where their jobs are project-based, so their income may fluctuate from year to year. But a 5-year or 10-year snapshot will show a certain level of consistency, right, for a broader timeline. How have our programs been tailored to meet these different types of challenges, or these different types of feedback that we receive regarding accessibility?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So for the Empower Homebuyers program, there have been 1 or 2 times in the past where we've worked closely with the Housing Trust to revise the program guidelines based on community feedback. I believe that's happened twice at this point. The seasonal feedback that you're referring to, I think we received relatively recently. At this point for Empower, all the remaining program funds, we have pre-approval letters out for potential buyers. So it's possible that program may sunset soon. However, the feedback that we've received, we'll take that feedback and take it into consideration in any future programs and in our current other active programs.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add, KJ?
I think Natalie did a great job, but thank you for just highlighting this work. And I did want to note for folks that are interested, just to be more specific on the website, it's on the affordable housing tab. There's a home ownership link that has a description of how to access all 4 programs.
Affordable home ownership. No.
Affordable housing.
Affordable housing.
Yeah, and then under affordable housing, there's a home ownership page.
Well, thank you. Thank you for this presentation, and just looking forward to learning more about these programs. I mean, we know that home ownership is the North Star for many of our families for long-term stability. And just as we receive presentations today about symptoms and outcomes of like food insecurity, housing insecurity, leading to chronic absenteeism, and not the greatest outcomes for college and advanced higher education. I think this is one of the keys to making sure that our families are able to be stabilized and secure for better outcomes for their children. So thank you so much for running these programs and for the presentation today. I have no more questions or comments. Susan?
Thank you. I also didn't know about the program, and I'd like to request, and I'll make this part of the motion if that's all right, that you send to all of our board offices the information that we can share, links to the places that you named, if there are one-pagers or any other already put together promotions of the programs. I would love to be able to see those and share them. So I would move receipt of the report with direction to send to all board offices some information.
Second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Yoon.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, item 8 is receive report from the Office of the County Executive relating to creation of a residential care facility advisory council and recommended actions to address working conditions at residential care facilities in Santa Clara County.
Good afternoon. My name is Ana Lilia Garcia. I am the Director for the Division of Equity and Social Justice and the Chief Equity Officer. I am joined by my colleagues, Julie Ramirez, DESJ Program Manager, and Jesse Yu, Program Manager for the Office of Labor Standards and Enforcement. Jessie has prepared a presentation for you, and we will be happy to answer any questions you may have after her presentation. Thank you.
Good afternoon, supervisors. I'm Jessie Yu with the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement, or OLSE. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our work since April around activities taken to improve working conditions at the residential care facilities in our county. On April 22nd, OLSE provided the board with recommended actions to help improve working conditions at RCFs. The recommended actions were developed through discussions with key stakeholders and focus on 3 main strategies: outreach and education to RCF workers and businesses, learning and convening with RCF workers and community stakeholders, and enforcement of unpaid judgments and labor code violations in the RCF industry. In the last 2 months, OLC has made progress on many of the recommended actions and has completed one. In the outreach and education focus, OLC has identified priority labor standards topics for community awareness campaigns this fall, and we are creating an RCF-specific community resource about labor laws. OLC also has completed providing community partners at the Filipino Association of Workers and Immigrants 1,000 medical pillboxes to support their in-person, door-to-door outreach and education efforts. These boxes include OLC's information and the phone number to a free attorney-staffed advice line for easy access for RCF workers and businesses with questions or concerns about their workplace. In the second area of focus of learning from RCF workers and community stakeholders, OLC will be hosting a community listening session with workers Thursday evening to learn more about their working conditions, what challenges they're experiencing in the workplace, and opportunities for the county to support them. Additionally, on May 15th, OLC and partner offices in the Department of Equity and Social Justice, like the Office of Immigrant Relations, the Office of Women's Policy, and the Office of Disability Affairs, met with community stakeholders to discuss opportunities for collaboration to address working conditions at RCFs in our county. In the third area of unpaid judgment enforcement in the RCF industry, OLSC has identified, investigated, and referred unpaid RCF judgments in Santa Clara County to the Workers' Rights Initiative, which is a partner with the Office of County Counsel. OLSC will continue to refer information regarding severe labor code violations to the Office of County Counsel for potential civil prosecution. In addition to the recommended actions, OLSC has taken steps to establish an RCF Advisory Council, which will serve as an informal stakeholder advisory group to our office. OLSC expects that the RCF Advisory Council will actively support the office in its efforts to advance labor standards compliance, and that the advisory group will provide subject matter expertise and critically inform our office of work in the industry. The RCF Advisory Council's activities may include informing and advising OLC on from a variety of stakeholder perspectives, advising OLC regarding its outreach and education, advising in terms of researching and identifying labor standards best practices relevant to the industry, and advising on methods to prioritize outreach and education on issues of importance that they've identified, like immigration, human trafficking, health and safety, retaliation, wage theft, sexual harassment, and violence in the workplace as they pertain to RCFs and RCF workers. Stakeholders at the May 15th meeting with community partners were provided an application for the RCF Advisory Council and asked to share the application with other individuals who may be interested in supporting the advisory group's activities. Applications are available on OLC's webpage, and we'll be collecting applications until August the 1st, 2025 this year. Meeting dates and times will be determined once members are confirmed. Stakeholders at the May 15th meeting with community partners identified priority topics and potential key objectives for the Advisory Council to focus on. They include, first, meeting immediate concerns of RCF workers by providing Know Your Rights trainings and to help workers identify real-life instances of wage theft to be aware of and be aware of worker health and safety issues. The second was supporting future workforce development of RCF workers to help build professional pathways to become certified nursing assistants, which have more medical training and workplace options. Also supporting RCF workers and managers through state and local webinars for employers about California labor laws and common wage theft violations. And supporting residents and their families with tools that they can use to identify RCFs without wage theft judgments. So between now and our next update to this community in March 2026, OLC will be focusing on these next steps. Hosting an RCF worker listening session on Thursday evening, and using that feedback from workers to coordinate a community awareness campaign for this fall. Completing the RCF Advisory Council membership process and convening the first council meeting with new members this fall. And completing remaining recommended actions with a focus on outreach education, stakeholder learning, and unpaid judgment enforcement. Thank you for the opportunity and to provide this update, and we welcome questions.
Anything else? Great. Well, thank you for this presentation. I really enjoyed reading the legislative file. Table 1, I'm going to be keeping that. I'm tabbing that. I'm keeping it as a resource reference item for myself as your work continues. And I just want to also give a shout out. Having a listening session with Powys at Seafood City, I don't think there's anything more culturally competent than that. Y'all should check it out. Yeah, I like to hang out there, period. So I think you're going to get really, I would assume, really, really great outcomes and feedback and engagement from that in terms of meeting people where they are in the moment. I would just, I wanted to ask about this table 1, the kind of this work plan here that you've provided. Has that been vetted by our partners with the wage theft task force and the members of Powys?
Absolutely. Those recommended actions were developed with them.
Oh, fantastic. I'm so happy to hear that. And, for the Know Your Rights trainings, would there be also an immigration rights component to it?
Yes, that's happening currently, actually.
Fantastic. And, it's, I look forward to learning more about what we gleaned from the listening sessions. Just looking at the slide with the schedule of events coming, I don't think I can wait until March 2026 for an update. So I'm going to, as part of my motion to receive report is also to request a status update in November of this year. I think following all the summer of listening sessions and fall work plan refinements, really would love to check in again to see how things are going.
If I could make that a little bit more specific, I'm happy to second your motion. When you say you want to know how things are going, I would love to know how specific we can get. Is there data or measurements or qualitative descriptions that you can use to show us that working conditions are improving for the workers and the facilities? What would be a reasonable measure to show us the impact of the work that you're doing?
Thank you very much for your question. A reasonable measure to quantify and qualify the impact that we are having throughout the program are to gauge from the participants themselves the kind of information they're receiving, but also to document through our hotline the kind of impact the information is having on them.
When you say the first part again?
To quantify and qualify, to better understand the kind of impact it's having, is to gather that information from participants.
So is this something that is kind of formalized, like survey questions? You would know if they've received back wages, but have you had greater success in hours and work conditions? I'm just trying to think of some kind of uniform way to be able to show what I'm confident is significant impact. I want us to be able to show the receipts of the work of this really critical office.
We can definitely go back and explore what that could look like to make sure that we are quantifying and qualifying accurately the kind of impact that it is having. So we'd be happy to go back and look at that.
Fantastic,
Yes.
and I would be
Just
interested
to be most
see.
accurate with the level of specificity in terms of what kind of impact we're having and ensuring that we're able to quantify those outcomes accurately.
Thank you, and I would definitely look to you to make those recommendations because I'm not entirely certain what they are. But when this comes back in November, if you could have either some data at that point or some suggestions of what you are going to look for in terms of quantitative measurements, that would be terrific.
Most definitely. And this summer, we're going to be hosting, we're in the process of hosting listening sessions to better understand need and impact. And based on those listening sessions, we'll be able to gather some qualitative feedback that could help inform the measurement and help inform the kind of impact we hope to see as a result of this program.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think one of the metrics that I'm always interested and hopeful in seeing is more calls to the OLSC hotline. Usually when people following a presentation or Know Your Rights video or it's just a packaged information about your rights, right? Or what is not allowed or what is allowed in the workplace. I would theoretically, in my mind, it would then prompt someone to call the OLC advice line to say, hi, I went to this training, or I saw this pamphlet, and I think this is happening at my workplace. I mean, I feel like that's one reasonable metric, right?
Exactly, and that's what I was referencing, the hotline. That would be one example of a measure,
Right.
but we imagine to identify other measures to document the impact.
Right. So the impact of your programs on having people call is the first critical piece. The second, which may be harder to measure, is based on the call and the action they take, what working conditions are improved.
Exactly, that would be a secondary measure of impact. We can definitely measure how many folks are going through the training, what they gain as a result of going through our training, subsequently the action that results, whether it's an increase in calls to our hotline, and then subsequently more longer-term outcomes and impact that we can definitely look into in terms of quantifying that.
Thank you for
Thank you.
helping me clarify that, Supervisor Young. It is that secondary impact that feels a little more amorphous to me, so that's what I'm thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you for the
No,
question.
You bring up a really good point. I think that's all the more, as I'm listening, right, all the more reason why the advisory council is so critical to this, because they would then be able to be on the ground level saying that, across, and you actually have the exact number of residential care facilities in your report too, that across this 300-something number of residential care facilities, how many folks feel that their workplace conditions improved? Yeah, where safety has been implemented or prioritized, and I feel like that's really where, I mean, we'll see in November, but my suspicion is that we're going to really glean that kind of information, that on-the-ground experience from the advisory council. So all the more reason why I really appreciate this body of work, and that's, I think in our other OLSC campaigns, we haven't had that type of advisory body before. I think besides the fast food council, right? But I'm seeing a trend here. Looking at you, James. I'm seeing a trend here of how we, maybe part of the framework of OLSC is that as we target specific industries, there is this external body of advisors, feedback loop from folks who are working in the industry. But I'd be excited to see that second metric of how do workplace conditions improve and where they improve in the coming months of your work. Thank you so much. Are there any other questions, Susan?
Nope.
All right. And then the motion, did you want me to make the motion again?
Just to note for the record, there are no requests to speak. And I think the motion is already on the table. I think you originally made the motion, so and Ellenberg seconded it. So we already have that. I can call the roll if you're ready.
Okay.
All right, Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 9, receive report from the Facilities and Fleet Department and Behavioral Health Services Department relating to the behavioral health facility expansion efforts in progress.
Good afternoon, Key Lee, Deputy County Executive. This is our monthly report to FGOC on our efforts to increase access or increase the number of behavioral health treatment beds or facilities in the county. For some context, we have established a goal of increasing 530 beds of all facility types. Of that goal, about 210 have been implemented, either through construction, renovation, or contracting. And about 230 beds are projects that are underway. Making up that 230 number are several projects. They include the Behavioral Health Services Center that we're constructing on the VMC campus. And they include 3 projects, the 101 Jose Figueres, Valley Health Center, Morgan Hill SNF, and the 264 North Morrison substance use residential property, for which we submitted applications to the first round of the bond behavioral health Continuum Infrastructure Program. Unfortunately, those projects were not approved, as we described in the report. We tried to ascertain from the data that we had, some reasons for why the projects were not approved. I think it was challenging. First, the state did not give us any feedback. Two, I don't think that we could make any presumptions based on the available data. So, for example, we don't have access to all of the applications that were submitted but not approved. In this round, the state allocated $3.3 billion to projects. They received 294 projects applications, but only awarded 124. So I think it was really challenging for us to present to the committee or maybe even to the board down the road about why the projects were not approved. For example, one may assume that the state was prioritizing projects that were kind of shovel-ready or closer to construction, to completion, and that they were prioritizing cost per bed. That may make sense, but it doesn't really explain why, for example, the 264 North Morrison project was not approved, which is actually very shovel-ready and has a pretty low cost per bed. So we provide some information in the report. We've laid out the next steps for round 2. Either way, we're still moving forward with those 3 projects, and we'll come to the board in August with a fuller report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to turn to James.
Yeah, I'm going to make some comments that are a little more pointed than the more polite comments from staff who worked really hard to bring forward very thoughtful applications. I think it's really inappropriate for the state of California, in having pushed forward this bond and sold it to the electorate, to then turn around and say that the applications aren't going to be published, to not issue formal criteria and scoring, to say that because it's an informal process that they're not going to then reveal any information on why people were picked or not, to not include any appeals process. Each one of those points that I just delineated, by the way, is something that if we were to do at the county level in our own procurement processes for far smaller procurements, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, not in the millions and billions of dollars, we would get rightly excoriated in these chambers and by our contractors and by the press and others. And where we are obligated to afford due process to allow people to submit protests, to allow people to understand why they didn't or did not get funding. That doesn't mean people ultimately always agree with recommendations that are brought forward or contracts that are approved. It's not to say that we are entitled to specific funding or that things would have to necessarily go the way we would envision them. But to not even offer this basic information with taxpayer money that was basically funded in a proposition that's diverting money away from counties who the state is so readily putting pressure on to increase services to these populations is deeply troubling. And the fact that the decisions were made in ways that we can't, in analyzing any of the available data, actually understand the basis for which this taxpayer money has been utilized, and that is disconnected from what we have in our county and our community identified through a rigorous process in public, presented in these chambers with deep and careful analysis of what the actual relevant needs are, which may or may not exactly manifest with lowest cost per bed, although as Key mentioned, one of our projects was not only completely shovel-ready and had very low cost per bed, but was a thoughtful analysis of the continuum and spectrum of services needed to actually be present in our community to tackle what the governor claims to be as a top priority. This is absolutely unacceptable. And it puts back our ability and our work to move this forward. So we will, of course, continue to figure out ways, and we indeed already are trying to continue to figure out ways to move the efforts forward to identify the beds that we need to continue to make available, either directly or by contracting. But not only is the state not doing its part to help, it is actually diverting resources away from us in a non-transparent manner and is shifting blame onto us in an area that is one where there's extraordinary need, as we know, because we've been trying to lead in these efforts through the leadership of the board, through the leadership of Supervisor Ellenberg, who brought forward major initiatives in this space. So I'm very concerned. It is deeply troubling that the state is using this process. It gives me very little confidence in what's going to happen with the subsequent round of funding. And, you know, of course, we will regroup and we will put in for the round 2 of funding and strengthen our applications. But this is not a way to be doing business with this critical funding, and this isn't a way that's going to actually move forward this important work across California, and certainly not here locally.
Thank you, James. I'm going to turn to see if there's any members of the public who would like to provide comment.
There are no requests to speak in the room, and there are no requests to speak online.
Okay. Now to discussion. Susan, I turn to you.
Thank you, James, for saying that so clearly and poignantly. I felt almost a deep personal hurt and sadness when we did not receive these grants. And I won't reiterate all of your excellent points, but I do want to be clear that Prop 1 was not funded with new dollars. It was funded by siphoning money away from the Mental Health Services Act project, the dollars that we have been using for years to fund mental health services. We were told that there would be fewer opportunities to invest in prevention, early intervention, and innovation projects, but that money would essentially, but the money that would be diverted would be used for housing, for treatment residences, housing at various levels that serve people's mental health needs. So there was a little bit of reassurance in the shifting from MHSA to BHSA that this money would come to us a different way. And of course, we're not entitled to grants, and we apply, and I would certainly testify to the excellence of all of our applications. 3 applications in our county did receive funding, and I want to express gratitude for that funding, because hopefully that will work to the advantage of some of our patients. But the decisions at the state level to fund the private providers, both nonprofit and for-profit, above, in lieu of the county projects where we are serving specifically the Medi-Cal population, and to your point, James, the specific population under which we have been increasing pressure over the last several years to expand services through expansion of conservatorship, through care court, through AOT, through any number of mandates. And it really was just shocking to not receive the funding to do the very things that we have been told to do. I don't know if my words and your words have diminished our opportunities for future funding. I certainly hope not. We remain very, very committed to participating in this process. I do regret that we are not seeing the same level of transparency that we are obligated to provide. But if there is any information that we can use to help us strengthen, you noted, James, the need potentially to strengthen our applications, would be helpful to know what that would look like, because shovel-ready, low-cost projects serving targeted populations would seem to me to be strong applications. So whatever you think needs to be done differently, we've had community-based organizations that serve this population reach out to say, would it be helpful for us to partner with you? I thought that was interesting because we actually helped the private entities submit their applications by vouching for them. So I don't know what it would take to strengthen, but I certainly support our reapplying and just continuing to do the work. I want to come back to Key and just note, first of all, to just credit the tremendous work and time and effort that you and your team put into this. I have no concerns about quality or strength of our projects. I also, as well, on a smaller scale here, appreciate that the quarterly reports are now including the number of additional clients served by our new beds to our system of care. I want to make sure that we are emphasizing that at every opportunity. I did note in the recent Vermont House press release, there was a description of the number of beds, but not of the number of people that can be served. So just something to keep on our radar. I had some questions about what would strengthen our applications, but I think I'm not going to ask them because I don't know that you have any more information than I do. I will just wish us all great strength and fortitude in moving ahead.
James, your light's still on?
Yeah, I just wanted to reaffirm, we are absolutely committed to submitting for round 2, and we're going to continue to glean whatever we can in information and analysis to try to make our applications as strong as we possibly can. We absolutely need this funding, and it's so critical in an environment where we don't have other resources right now to bring forward. So we will keep doing that. I just want that commitment to be absolutely clear, but stand behind all the comments I made earlier about this is just not an appropriate process.
Supervisor, just add a couple notes. For the second round, the state has indicated that their priority is to fund projects in rural or remote areas or areas that don't have this sort of infrastructure. They have, asserted a prioritization for facilities on behavioral health treatment campuses. I mention all of that just because that the prioritization for the second round is a little different than the first. We, of course, are trying to have a meeting with the staff to understand what all of that means, which then will not only strengthen our application once we submit them, but also, help us strategize about which projects we'll submit or which projects we'll put more emphasis on.
Certainly, it's going to be hard for us to make a case for being rural or remote.
Yeah.
But that
Although
is
we
interesting.
do have rural parts of our county.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
We do have rural parts of our county.
We may lean into that. So.
I think that can be an excellent strategy. It is concerning, and I would be interested in seeing. It's not urgent. So maybe it's too much of an academic exercise, but it really would be interesting to see an analysis of the projects that were approved across the state, which ones went directly to county governments, which ones went to community-based organizations, how many went to for-profit providers, urban, rural, suburban, that kind of breakdown. It will be after the fact, so I'm not sure how it will be helpful, but it may be telling in some ways as to what the strategy was from the state level. I think we might have to reverse engineer to try to understand that. But is that worth anybody's time to try to do that analysis?
I think for me, it is It is worthwhile, mainly because at the outset, the state indicated several funding categories. Of the $3.3 billion, it was broken down by different regions. There was a set aside for county governments, and so we want to see
What percentage was the set aside for county governments of the total tranche?
Yeah, I don't have that right now, but I can pull that up. So we want to see how closely they, toe the line to that sort of allocation to the best we can.
Okay, thank you. I'm not going to make direction to do that because I'd rather leave it to your judgment if it's worth your time. If you do it, it would be really interesting to see. Thank you. And the second tranche, the first tranche was 3.3 billion. This next one must be under $1 billion then.
Yes, it's only 800 million.
And what was the total amount of our 3 proposals? Approximately.
We submitted for the 3 projects 115 million.
So more than 10% of the total amount.
For this next round.
Cool.
Thank you, Key, for the presentation. Please share it with Sherry and the team that we truly appreciate their hard work on this. Thank you, James, for your very pointed words. I co-sign all that. Thank you. Good luck on round 2. I don't think there's anything else I can say except we desperately need these resources for people who are in desperate need of support right now. Thank you. Motion to receive report?
Second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Yoon.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. And item 12. We are, item 12, receive report from the Office of the County Executive and the Technology Services and Solutions Department relating to the County Web Portal Transformation Initiative.
Good afternoon, Sylvia Gallegos, Deputy County Executive, and I am here in my capacity as the executive sponsor for the Web Transformation Initiative. And in the audience, we have our interim CIO, Amin Moslehi, and Rose Campbell, a project manager. And to my right, I have Tram Nguyen, a senior IT manager, and also Ricardo Romero, who's the Director of Language Access in the Office of the County Exec. We have a quick presentation primarily focused on Phase 3 with respect to language access, but I did want to spend a moment setting the table with respect to the project thus far. We started in 2018, and as you may recall, we moved from an end-of-life web platform that was no longer going to be supported, and we moved nearly 100 county websites to a new web platform that's cloud-based, scalable, and that is really helpful with respect to traffic. So for example, during the pandemic, we had a very substantial increase in web traffic, and to TSS credit, they were able to keep our old web platform functioning, given the stress test they were given. Our new web platform is secure from cyber attack. It's mobile optimized because more people are experiencing our web through mobile phones. We designed the web platform to be guided by the needs of our residents, and you can see it in many of the characteristics of the website. And we also made it a robust platform for storytelling because we believe in every forum we need to communicate to the community the value of our services with respect to promoting the welfare and protecting their health and safety. Lastly, I want to highlight during this period, between 2 federal administrations, we were able to secure from the federal GSA permission to create a .gov domain. So now, as you know, we are SantaClaraCounty.gov. And you saw in the report, we will be working towards also transitioning email addresses, and that's a separate project. So with that, I'm going to transition over to Ms. Tram to fill in some blanks and speak more directly to Phase 3.
Thank you. Tram Nguyen from TSS, and thank you, everyone. I want to talk a little bit more about Phase 3. So as we just wrapped up Phase 2, moving 90-plus different websites onto now the county santaclara.gov platform, our team will be focusing on not only modernizing existing services, looking at digital accessibility, and the core of this is providing multilingual support, which includes translating content from English to the threshold languages, and for the hospitals, that could be up to 16 different languages as well. As you can see in Phase 3, we do have digital service expansion where we want opportunities to transform our existing services that are now manual and being able to provide them online so that our residents can access information at their time and when they need it. I want to highlight one thing about multilingual support is that we did start this initiative in parallel with Phase 2. The first part is that we established working with the Language Access Unit because they are one of our partners for this initiative, and really understanding the residents' needs along with looking at different technologies. Since we looked at different technologies, the landscape has changed. Generative AI has now been available and looking for us as a county to centralize our translation management system. Existing translation management systems today, the county doesn't have one, and we really heavily rely on vendors for our translation. So introducing a technology to streamline this is something that we're working very closely with LAU, and Ricardo will speak a little bit more about our timeline on how we plan to deliver this.
Thank you, Tram, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ricardo Romero Morales, Program Manager 3 for the Language Access Unit under the Division of Equity and Social Justice. As Tram just mentioned, in 2024, we did an extensive market research to try to identify a solution that will work for the county to be able to translate all of our county websites, at least into our threshold languages. At this point in time, we are getting ready to launch our RFP. We are hopeful that we're going to be launching that in July of 2025. And as you see here in this slide, we have a timeline for our RFP. We're hopeful that during the period between October and December of this year, 2025, we will be able to review and evaluate the responses that we receive from the RFP. And then moving at the very beginning of 2026, we hope to conduct proof of concepts or POCs in where we are going to identify the top vendors to be able to identify their features and ensure that they are compatible with the system that we have in place in the county. From the period from April to June 2026, we hope to select the vendor and finalize negotiations with them. And then right after, we hope to enter into a contract with the selected vendor, with the aim to move into an implementation approach that it's going to be more of a wave approach. I'm thinking about our first wave of implementation be sometime in October of 2026. This will allow us to ensure that we are being intentional and at the same time that we're being very careful in selecting the departments that will go first to ensure that we're selecting those who have higher impact in the community needs, especially in this difficult times that we're all facing. Next slide, please. When it comes to the next phases of the implementation or waves, as I mentioned, they will start in 2026, and we are anticipating that they could go all the way until 2028. Now, this may seem like a very long timeline. However, we do anticipate that the very first wave and the first few waves are going to be taking the longest. As we continue to program and learn from the machine, this is going to provide us an opportunity to learn and also refine and fine-tuning the settings, and at the same time, training the machine with our glossary, style guides, and also any additional feedback that we're receiving from the community to be able to localize the language accordingly. In terms of next steps, where we are, as I mentioned, we are hopeful that we're going to finalize the RFP and being able to launch it next month, and also being able to collaborate with the labor partners in case there are any other questions. And with that, we'll happy to take any questions you may have.
Colin, I'm going to turn to you to see if there's any members of the public who would like to provide comment.
There are no requests to speak in the room, and there is no request to speak online.
Starting to see a trend here. Yeah. I know. Susan, would you like to, any questions or comments?
Thank you. But this is such a trivial piece, but at some point we all change our email addresses. When does that happen for the board?
The plan is starting right now. We don't have to do that until 2029. Unfortunately, it's a different team, but I can get back to you in terms of.
Oh, it's a different piece.
It's a different team implementing it. TSS is still responsible for the email because it's not tied directly to the web domain. We still have some plans, and that doesn't have to happen until 2029.
Thank you.
But it won't be for a while.
It doesn't have to happen until 2029?
The law doesn't require for emails to be on .gov until 2029.
But the actual transition doesn't take that long.
It will take some time. It's a fairly complicated process, just like the website transition took several years. I want to say about 4 years. I would anticipate the email process will take some time. We haven't yet kind of mapped all those pieces, but that doesn't mean it'll take till 2029, but it will take a little bit of time to do.
Do you have any additional questions, Susan?
I do not.
Thank you. This is very exciting, specifically to the language access piece of this. I have so many questions. I'm not going to go through all of them today. This is just a precursor to expect invitation from my office to see when we can sit down and have a more fulsome debrief on this. But just are some initial questions here. Are there any other county or jurisdictional websites that you feel have really done language access right?
No. At this point in 2024, we actually did extensive research to try to identify whether there was a governmental entity across the country to see if we can learn from their experience. Unfortunately, we were not able to find any good examples at this point.
I kind of expected that answer, was hoping for something new. I just remembered, Ricardo, your leadership during the COVID pandemic in the Emergency Operations Center, where your unit basically built its own language accessible COVID-19 website. And that was, I think, 5 websites layered on top of each other because each one had to be individually tailored to both local language, like to the language itself, but also the threshold language, but to the local usage and understanding and the culture, the local competencies around the language. So kind of happy and a little bit disappointed to hear that we're still lead on this issue. So I guess we're building another model for the rest of the world to follow. So how are you assessing the waves of implementation? I'm assuming there's a prioritization rubric or analysis with us moving towards language accessibility for the most commonly used website. I mean, I would love to hear about some of the metrics or considerations that's being taken into account for that.
Thank you for the question. At this point, we're still developing that criteria. What I can tell you is that we want to prioritize those departments that have a high impact on the community. And also thinking about the budget, we also want to make sure that we are prioritizing those departments who may benefit at this point, as TSS is going to be able to provide funding for the first year of this TMS implementation. So we want to make sure that we're leveraging the dollar amount accordingly.
Oh, thank you. It's very thoughtful. And then will it be with the 5 threshold languages? Is that what the desired outcome is? And when we're done with language accessibility, creating that level of accessibility for our county website, is it 5 languages? Is it 42 languages, like our language line? Or what is the criteria there?
Yes, for the implementation of TMS, we are aiming to use the 5 languages, this including English. So this will be English, Spanish, Chinese, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. We do have departments such as, or agencies such as HHS, that they may have a higher language requirement. It could be up to 16 different languages that they might be requiring. So those, we will be working with those agencies and departments individually to try to find a solution for them.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for your work on this. And then, let's see, user experience is so key to this. Having the translation available is half of the story, right? The other half is how comfortably one who is monolingual, Spanish or Tagalog or Chinese, is able to confidently navigate the site to see their language options. And, there's that. And then there's this general observation I have that not all county websites, there's one county website, but not all the sites embedded in it are created equally. Tram, I'm so happy to see you here. I've worked with you both on creating the website for OLSC and also creating the website for the Vietnamese American Service Center. Very positive experience for me at the time that working with you, it was really clear that I was a techno peasant. Just that user experience. I don't know, or what is their approach to making sure that we embed, as we work towards having this TMS, having this new level of language accessibility, but taking into account the user experience for easy navigation?
Thank you for your question. There's two approaches that we're going to plan on this. One is we are going to look into user testing, and it's putting the hands of the residents and getting their feedback in terms of how they will respond when they see product A versus product B. The other opportunity is that I get to work with Ricardo, and his team has done community outreach as well, and focus groups. So leveraging the folks that he has access to so that they can do the testing and provide the direct feedback to us.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, if there's a way, I'm going to offer I happily volunteer and offer some of my family members who still call me for their tech support to translate things for them. And, when we introduced the language line here at the county building, that's why I had my top constituents and key family members use the line themselves without my help to get their feedback. So I would be really interested. That's a long roundabout way of saying, please let us know how we can support. I think all of our offices have constituents that we're very familiar with that have that level of language accessibility need that I think would be great demonstrators for feedback on this process. This is a huge undertaking with very high stakes involved, especially when there's no playbook or no blueprint to follow or building our own. I am so excited. Thank you for all your work, and I look forward to seeing the progress here. I also often say that language access is my love language, so it's something that I would love to continue to follow with you. So I'll be reaching out for briefings to better understand this process as it moves forward. I'm still very curious about how AI will work into this and what the quality controls are going to be in place to make sure that we're adopting the right localized language for our population of need. Thank you. Motion to receive report.
Second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And then 16 and 20. I am so sorry. I'm going to take something out of order here. I'd like to hear item 20 next. And that's going to be the received quarterly report from the Office of the County Executive relating to the Santa Clara County Fairgrounds. It was just a message to me that we also have some presenters who need to get back to work. So, to put it bluntly, back to the fairgrounds. Thank you for your patience, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Supervisor Young and Supervisor Ellenberg, Consuelo Hernandez, Deputy County Executive. I'm joined by Glenn Williams, our Asset Development Manager, and we also have representatives from FMC. Here in person with me is Armando Carlos and Sandy, and on Zoom we have the newly appointed Executive Director, Celine Duarte. So I'm going to take a minute to congratulate her on her new role.
And we're going to skip the presentation in the interest of time and really focus on a quick oral update. As you know, Glenn and I have spent the last, now I guess 11 months working really closely with the FMC staff to both understand the operations, to manage some of the county-led developments, really get a sense of what are some of the violations, the building needs, long-term planning, and actually taking a look at what the county intended to do in 2019 when we amended our agreement with FMC. And some of the changes that were proposed in 2019 have not really come to fruition for a number of factors, primarily with the governance structure and because of COVID. And while we've had a lot of successes in the last year in activating the fairgrounds, really the kind of piecemeal of projects that we've had to manage over the last several years has really limited the opportunity of what the fairgrounds can become, while preserving its mission of hosting an annual fair and all of the programming that we get to see at the fairgrounds. So in your report, we've tried to create now a more holistic and unified representation of what's happening at the fairgrounds. In the past, we were providing these kind of bifurcated reports, but really this gives you an idea of everything that's happening at the fairgrounds and the opportunities for a master planning effort. One thing that county administration has not in the recent past had the opportunity to do so. Using a lot of the historical information that I have through Glenn Williams and County Executive James Williams and others, one of the reasons why we haven't been fully successful in redeveloping the fairgrounds is there hasn't really been a starting conversation with the board where we're aligned in our mission and what we see the fairgrounds. What is the future? What is our vision? How do we incorporate the feedback from the community and recognize that at the end of the day, this is a county asset. We hire FMC as our management agent. And there are a lot of safeguards right now that actually limit our ability to maximize operations at the fairgrounds. So in the last few pages of the report, we've laid out just a very quick framework that would allow us to take a two-pronged approach. One is how do we activate the fairgrounds today to increase revenue? Celine, Armando, and the team, they've been doing a really great job this year of activating the fairgrounds year-round, and we want to support them. A lot of that support requires Glenn and I to go out there more frequently and remove some of the barriers that are there now, but that really is beyond the role that we should be playing, particularly when we hire an organization to run those programs for us. But it does require a level of support from county administration, again, because of the way that the governance structure is set up. So how do we activate the fairgrounds, generate revenue, continue to improve the facilities while we develop a master planning effort? And that master planning effort has to be phased. The amount of funding that is needed to get the fairgrounds to a place where we all want to see is not a resource that the county has, given all of our other priorities. Allowing for a phased approach would allow us to be creative and test some things in the next year that will kind of guide how we envision the future of the fairgrounds. So I know I'm going very fast. I'm happy to answer questions. We've tried to capture some of the previous Supervisor Ellenberg last year. You asked us for information about what is the benefit that we get in the work of FMC in the way of parking, in the way of discounts to nonprofits. We've tried to incorporate that in the report. And in the coming year, if you look at our FMC agreement, there are monthly reports that are required to be submitted to the county with very specific details that haven't been provided to the county, and we'll be working with Selena and the team to start making sure that those reports are submitted and that they contain the content that was originally requested in 2019. And with that, we are here and available to answer questions.
Thank you, Consuelo. Colin, do we have any members of the public who would like to make comment?
There are no requests to speak in the room, and there are no requests to speak online.
All right. Susan?
want to just express appreciation for all of you sitting at the table today. I do see significant improvements in communication and engagement and partnership, and I am hoping this is the beginning of a really strong trajectory toward the fairgrounds that we all want to see, and really that the surrounding community as well as the region deserves. So thank you. Look forward to continuing to engage. And Consuelo, what's the timing that you're bringing something to the full board for policy and kind of big goals discussion?
Thank you, Supervisor. It really is a question for the board, and I'll look to the county executive's office. We've tentatively mapped out a process that would take about 12 months. One of the things that we are trying to do is maximize the talent in the facilities and fleet team, rather than hiring a consultant and going through the process, the very lengthy process of hiring a consultant, is leveraging the talent in FAF, so that would save us some time. It would take us 12 months.
12 months to do exactly what? Sorry.
This kind of master planning effort where we would go to the board, ask you all a set of policy questions that would guide our work. We would then go into community engagement, map out some concepts based on that community engagement. At the same time, engage with folks that are interested. Sandy, Armando, and Celine can tell you that we constantly receive requests from people wanting to use the fairgrounds, wanting to bring these really innovative opportunities that, we can start testing some of that in the meantime. Engaging with developers, engaging with people who are interested in working with us on the fairgrounds, all of that happening concurrently. So it really, we can come in the fall. Again, I'm looking to the county executive and to the chair to see if that's something that you all want to schedule. We will be ready when you are.
I will look to the chair for when that comes back, but what I would look for when that does is kind of a work plan over the year that shows in these months we'll be really focused on community engagement, and this is the outreach and the stakeholders, and I know that it's Supervisor Young's district, so I imagine that she will be front, center, behind, around, all over that, and I'm very happy to play a supportive role, but would just love to have an understanding of what that year of work will look like.
James, I see your light on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think it makes sense to move this forward soon, because the conversation around the fairgrounds has been happening for a very long time, and I think we have a window of opportunity right now to really reset a lot of pieces structurally, but also just from a whole master planning perspective to get some just reset some things and move some projects forward. So I want to seize that window of opportunity now and get that planning process going. So we'll work through the chair of the committee to kind of map out a cadence for bringing that forward here at FGOC, but I think it makes sense to move that forward sooner.
I really loved hearing what you said, Consuelo, especially the part where you said, we're ready to go whenever you are. I think it's no secret that I've been ready since yesterday to see something happen for the fairgrounds. I grew up going to the fairgrounds for the annual Vet Festival, and this is like predating social media, so the only time you ever saw other folks that look like you is at these 3-day festivals there, but it's something that's not even there anymore. And that's just to say, I know the potential of the fairgrounds, of what it can mean to community and bringing people together and creating space where our identities, our culture, each other are celebrated. So I also know that as the newest District 2 supervisor, I'm the latest addition to a long legacy of supervisors who have tried to see something created, built, uplifted here at the fairgrounds. Huh? It'll be you. I know. Last baton, right? So if I'm lucky, I have the next 11 and a half years with you here, and that's not a lot of time at all to completely re-envision and master plan and start having shovels in the ground. So would it be, and I also want to make sure that we go at a pace where the best work is able to be provided. So would it be too soon or just the right amount of pressure for this to come back in the fall to the full board for discussion consideration?
I definitely think it should come back to the board in the fall. That's part of what I see as a golden window of opportunity. These projects take time. And having some stability and leadership and having the right structure and the right pieces together to move them forward will make things effective. I think we need to get moving this calendar year.
Mm-hmm.
And even though the broader macroeconomic environment and the broader fiscal environment for the county organization is so dire right now and so uncertain right now, that's actually the right time to move the structural and planning pieces forward so that when that cycle shifts, which it will, we're already ready to go to seize on the opportunities and start implementing. You don't want to start that structural work and that planning work then, because you'll actually then miss that wave. So actually, from even that perspective, this is the right window, in my view, to be moving it forward. So I would like to see it move forward quickly. You know, I've been around for too many discussions about the fairgrounds, literally with this committee, because I've had the fortune to sit with this committee since 2012. And you know, what we haven't had, in my view, having largely been witness to the conversations, because I was, for a big chunk of that time, in a different role sitting up here, we haven't had the right structure of how we're organized in the operation of the fairgrounds with a very fragmented system. And we haven't had a process where we've, in a cohesive manner, moved forward projects with a unified vision. And we have an opportunity now to rectify both those, to do so together. We got to seize that opportunity. We really do. This is a jewel that we have in the fairgrounds. It really is. I think there's some of us, I know Supervisor, you share this, there's some of us who can look at that site and see the extraordinary potential. And what we have on the ground there today, I think we can all agree, is not reflective of that extraordinary potential. And that gap is literally the opportunity gap that we have to realize the value for the benefit of the neighboring community and the county as a whole. So we need to seize that. Now's the opportunity to jump on that. I'm excited about it. I know Consuelo's excited about it, and I think we should move as reasonably quickly as we can. Again, making sure that we are dotting the I's and crossing the T's so that, you know, it's being done in the right way and being done with a level of rigor and excellence.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I know that we should get this done fast, because I know, Glenn, I've heard that you keep on threatening retirement. So let's get as much as we can out of you before you ride off into the sunset. Well earned, but we still need you. And I just also want to acknowledge that Armando and the staff, Celine's team at the fairgrounds, the team we have today at the fairgrounds is incredibly professional. You are highly skilled. I've seen that through multiple iterations of our meetings and trying to figure out different events and different ideas to bringing to the fairgrounds. And I just haven't encountered a situation yet where you have said, oh, we don't know how to do that, or we can't do that. Everything has been, we know, we could figure it out, we've done it before, but our partners need to be sure that they're on the same page as us. So that's what I've learned. So thank you. I just want to acknowledge that where the fairgrounds is and not having met its highest potential is not a product of your efforts and skill. It's not that at all. It's you. We have a fantastic team. Thank you. So Consuelo, let's see. I'm going to turn to you, James, too, and our county execs here to make sure we make the right motion. I make a motion to receive the report and to have a report back to the full Board of Supervisors in September. Does that sound about right? September, regarding
September sounds good.
September sounds good. September regard, or do you want to do August? We could do August too.
I think September, we've got a lot of items
I know.
scheduled for
Trying
August.
to give you all some breathing room, but
so I think September is good.
yeah, great. So for this, for staff to come to the Board of Supervisors meeting in September with the proposed work plan outline of a potential master planning process for the fairgrounds. Sounds good?
Right, second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Jung.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Let's build it. Thank you. Okay, last item on our agenda today, I want to thank the IGR team for your patience. So item 16 is receive monthly state legislative report from the Office of Intergovernmental Relations.
Good afternoon, Chair Young and Vice Chair Ellenberg, Monica Tong, Program Manager 3 in the Office of Intergovernmental Relations in the Office of the County Executive. Joining me today is Elaine Trin, Program Manager 2. You have our report and presentation in the packet, and today we will just be highlighting the items that have changed since the report, and then we're happy to take any questions you may have. This reflects the calendar that you've seen in past meetings, and right now, the legislature continues with policy committees. These are county-sponsored bills. SB 261 was referred to Assembly Committees on Labor and Public Employment and the Committee on Judiciary. Those hearings will occur in early July. AB 243 passed Senate Education and is on the Senate Judiciary consent calendar as we speak. And AB 1025 was held by the Assembly Committee on Appropriations, and we continue to explore options for next steps with the author. These are the bills that IGR has engaged in the FGOC policy area thus far. Summaries of the bills were provided in the report, and I will keep our comments here brief and update you on their statuses. The only bill that is no longer moving forward is SB 496 by Senator Hurtado, which is a bill that our Facilities and Fleet Department was highly engaged in, so we're disappointed to see that, but look forward to next steps. And the fiscal year 25-26 budget process is ongoing. As you know, the governor released his May revision on May 14th. The legislative budget agreement was announced on June 9th, and the legislature passed their version of the budget on the 13th. Negotiations between the governor and legislature actually wrapped today, and bills were announced this afternoon, so we will be going through those shortly. While we are still in 2025, we are beginning preparations for 2026. I will hand it over to Elaine to give a quick update about the 2026 legislative platform.
As Monica mentioned, even though we're still in 2025, we've already kicked off our 2026 planning. So as you know, annually, we update our county legislative platform, and this is made of 4 components. It's our legislative policies document, our legislative priorities, our bill ideas that we sponsor, and then one-time state and federal funding requests. And so guidance to departments was actually sent out today by Deputy County Executive David Campos. In the next few weeks, we'll be meeting with departments and board offices to get feedback about in the development of our 2026 platform. And so in July, we'll also be hosting virtual drop-in office hours, and then with plans to go to the board policy committee meetings in October and bring our entire package to the board for approval in November.
With that, we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Monica and Elaine, for that presentation and for all your work in this area. Colin, are there any members of the public who would like to make public comment?
There are no requests to speak in the room, and there are no requests to speak online.
Susan, Vice Chair, I turn to you to see if there's any questions or discussion.
I don't today, but thank you very much for the update on the report. And I just want to say again, I think I do it every time, but I really appreciate the way your slides are iterative and kind of always take us back to where we were and then just get updated as we go. It's a really clear way to present material and information that is continuously changing. Thank you.
Yes, agreed, especially with this ever-changing, complex landscape that's it's giving us new surprises all the time. Yeah, so I'm so happy to see the progression of SB 261, and I've received your direction and request. I'm on standby for a couple dates in July to come to Sacramento for some testimony on the wage theft bill. I also want to ask for additional information on SB 743. It's an education finance bill from Senator Cortese that was recently brought to my attention. And from what I understand is that if it passes, the funding gap for schools in my district in particular may be able to receive additional support. So would you mind doing an off-agenda report on the bill and share any updates on our ability to support it if we're not already?
What was the bill number again?
SB 743. And my interest is not just in my schools, but all Title I schools across the county serving low-income families,
Yeah, we
which
can
there's a
certainly
lot of
look
in my
into
district.
it.
Huh?
We can certainly look into it.
Thank you. Great. I think with that, motion to receive report.
Second.
Vice Chairperson Ellenberg.
Yes.
Chairperson Young.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Fantastic. All right. That concludes our agenda here today. So we are going to be adjourning to the next meeting of FGOC on Tuesday, August 19th, 2025 at 2 p.m. right here in the board chambers at 70 West Heading. Meeting adjourned.